3 different or 4 different countries giving different rules that we all see in our news feeds because we're all part of that same world country.
So if I see Zach Hardacre in Castleford Asda without his face mask on, can I report him or not? This is the question. Anyway,
well, it's that sort of stuff that we need to be careful about now. But it's another thing, like they're getting out ahead of a problem.
Yes, I think. As you say, I think it's a bit of a shot across the bows, isn't it? This is, you need to, you've got away with it, but you're not going to do so anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on now to the 8th of July. So Super League has announced Screen 4 as its coronavirus testing partner. Who'd have thought we could say that? Ahead of the resumption of the 2020 season. So the UK-based company, which has already worked with the Emirates Airlines and Racing Point F1, will start testing players this week as they prepare to return to training. Testing will be carried out on a weekly basis at the end of the until the end of the season, or when medical advice changes. So it's obviously a company that has experience working with a sport that's up and running in Formula One, and they haven't had any fundamental issues so far, so they're probably a reasonable partner to choose, I'd suggest.
Yeah, and it demonstrates that whilst they're a UK-based company based out of Barnsley,
okay,
so a Yorkshire company as well, so a northern company, so positives there for our local economies and stuff, but they have dealt with international circumstances, which the Super League is, because we've got the Catalans Dragons.
Yes.
In the Super League. So I think, that's good. I did some digging.
More digging.
It looks like the people involved in Screen 4 seems to be Screen 4 in its current guise seems to be a relatively new company, but the people who've been behind it have operated similar companies under a different company structure for a number of years, doing obviously not coronavirus testing, but other kinds of testing and that sort of stuff. So these people who run this company are experienced with this, and probably a relatively recent change of company structure was more to have an opportunity to expand and stuff.
I'm going to say, even in the worst of times, there are opportunities for some, aren't there?
Yeah, so the people behind it seem experienced. There's obviously other people that are working with them in a positive way. I did find one questionable news story. I don't know how culpable Screen 4 were in this, but and I'd not heard about this scandal, which is quite, we hear so much coronavirus-based news. I'd not heard about this scandal, but the article I read was from a relatively reputable news source, I think, but I can't remember who it was. But basically, there was some scamming doctor working out of Harley Street in London who was selling test kits for huge markups, and the test kits he was selling were sourced by Screen 4 so they were kind of like a middleman in the supply chain. So they'd go to their suppliers to get kits, and then they distribute it with their partners. Well, these were selling them onto this guy, who was then selling them for a huge markup. It was Tatler was the news source. So that's a famous magazine, isn't it? It's not like a made up thing. Doctor accused of profiteering from virus tests forced to pay back £2 million. Dr. Mark Alley had claimed that the service was value for money. Basically, he was selling test kits that he had yet to procure for £375 each. Yet the kits obviously costed a sort of fraction of that to buy directly from the suppliers themselves. They were £120 if you bought directly from the suppliers, but through this chain that Screen 4 were part of the chain to get the kits from the supplier to this Dr. Ali to then scam people with. Now he claimed that because he was a doctor, he wasn't offering just a test, he was offering a rounded medical consultation with this, but that can't be the case if he's been made to pay all this money back, and also all of the kits that he was selling on to people hadn't been actually procured yet.
Well, that's dodgy, but I think that says more about the ethics of people in Harley Street than it does about anything else.
Yeah.
I think the thing with these tests is.
But that was the dirt I could dig up, and it doesn't really feel like it's hugely dirt on them.
No.
But there's obviously. Let's hope Super League are a more reputable people to get involved with than Dr. Ali of Harley Street.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, at the end of the day, the most difficult part is at the moment is not securing the actual test. It's actually undertaking it, isn't it? By all accounts, it's a very uncomfortable thing to have to go through. So you need somebody who's prepared to do it properly. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and obviously this company does have some experience of procuring and carrying out tests.
Yes.
And we've already seen that they've got underway. There were some test kits over in France. I know that the Wigan Warriors players are due to start getting tested tomorrow. Some of the other teams that are already back in training from today, like Huddersfield Giants, Leeds Rhinos had their testing started at the weekend and the back end of last week, and I think Leeds put some videos on of players starting to get tested on social media or on the website or something. So it's already up and running, which is good. Once the deal's been struck, it's been quickly put into place and into practice.
Yep, it's good.
10th of July, Tony Adams MBE is awarded his second RFL President's Award, and this time it was just Hull KR Club Dr. Gemma Phillips for her outstanding work throughout the coronavirus pandemic. As well as working at Hull KR, Dr. Phillips has also worked with the England Knights and Great Britain teams and is a member of the RFL's Clinical Advisory Group, which consists of some of the sports and the country's leading medical experts. Throughout the pandemic, Dr. Phillips has been at the forefront of work with the Rugby League to shape and then apply the government guidance to the sport, as preparations have been made for a safe return to training and playing at all levels. In her role as the RFL COVID medical officer, she has represented the sport at the highest level in government-led medical groups with experts from a range of sports. So, well done to Dr. Phillips, getting recognition for the hard work that she's done to get our sport back in a position to be played again.
Yeah, we like Dr. Phillipses of all varieties.
All the Dr. Phillips, yeah.
All the Dr. Phillipses, yes.
Not Dr. Ali's, but Dr. Phillips.
Yeah.
Good job she's not Dr. Ali Phillips, because then we'd be conflicted.
That's just creating problems. Yeah, so following a meeting of the RLEF board, agreement has been reached on the status of the 4-tier 2020 European Championships. It's been confirmed that the men's European Championship A, due to be played in October and November, has been cancelled, while the men's European B, C and D Championships, also due to be played in October, have been postponed and are now scheduled for 2021, which will signify the start of the qualification process for the 2025 Rugby League World Cup.
Love Rugby League reported the fixture list for the revised Super League season will not be announced until at least the middle of next week, so hopefully by Wednesday or Thursday this week we might know, but we might not. Wrangles over player pay cuts have caused a delay to confirming this full schedule, was what Love Rugby League said, with reports suggesting only 3 clubs so far have agreed to terms with players returning to training. I believe it's now 6 clubs who've agreed to terms, and some other clubs are returning to training having not agreed to terms. A full list was expected to release last week of fixtures, with at least the first month of action set to be played at 3 neutral venues behind closed doors. Although the 3 venues haven't been confirmed, it was reported that Headingley is due to host the triple header, whilst Warrington's Halliwell Jones Stadium is widely thought to be another of the host venues. A total of 5 venues have been under consideration, with Salford's AJ Bell Stadium, the John Smith Stadium in Huddersfield, and the St Helens Totally Wicket Stadium, the others on the list. There is an understanding between clubs that playing behind closed doors means that home advantage is minimal, although if a club was to play at its home ground, they may be forced to use the away team dressing room as a compromise. I mean, obviously the delay in fixtures is a concerning part of this report, but the most intriguing part of the report is that last part, isn't it? Do you think it'll make a huge amount of difference for Leeds Rhinos players to go into the away dressing room, or Warrington, will Blake Austin be thrown off his game by having to turn left rather than turn right when he walks through the entrance of the Halliwell Jones?
Well, if he hasn't already forgotten how to get there, then he might just wander that way anyway. No, I think they'll cope with this fine.
Do you think it's at least a surface level effort to pacify what I do expect to be a huge horde of complaints from fans about, and I've seen this already from some people, from Wigan fans, some Wigan fans as well, about how can it be neutral if it's one of the team's grounds? Well, the main differentiator is that it's fans in the stadium, and when you're talking 2/3 of the fans or 3/4 of the fans are the home side's fans, that's the main part home advantage plays, because that's how you can pressure players and referees into doing things that you want them to do rather than what they want to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's something about pitch dimensions and that kind of thing, which is
why we can't play at Castleford, and dressing rooms is why we can't play at Wakefield. But outside of that, I can't imagine the away dressing rooms are hanging at the Totally Wicked.
No, I was going to say I'm sure they're fine. Yeah, so the stadiums mentioned are all modern stadiums who have got facilities that I'm sure the away sheds are not as well. I'm sure they're not sheds, so I'm sure they'll all cope with it. But yeah, as David said earlier, if you can complain about something, we will. So
one of the things I was thinking, obviously Catalans want to play some games at home where they could have 5,000 fans, and that would all be home fans. You would have to suspect.
Yeah, I think so.
Because how can they justify to their 7,000 season ticket holders or what have you they might have that only 5,000 of them, not less than 5,000 of them can go, because they're selling some tickets to 1,000 away fans as well? Seems a stretch, but that would then constitute more home advantage, wouldn't it?
In that scenario, yes, there is clearly a home advantage there, but
so if the Catalans were allowed to play at the Stade Gilbert Brutus, should they have to play with no fans, even though in their country the law now would allow them to?
I think.
Or does it not matter if you get rid of relegation?
Well, ultimately, it doesn't matter if you get rid of relegation, does it?
Not
but
much, no.
I do think there's definitely something about the rules and regulations about exact crowd sizes will vary based on the territory, and quite frankly, in terms of local lockdown, if any of the areas go into a Leicester type situation, they're not going to be able to play in front of a crowd, even though other people can play.
And a number of the areas, which is why Huddersfield surely can't be selected for a start, are in Rugby League lands.
Yes.
Kirklees being one of them.
Yeah, I mean, Kirklees. It depends where you are in Kirklees, but yeah, you've got to be. Yes, it will vary, and I don't think we should be stopping Catalan having 5,000 of their own fans in their stadium. I think that'd be pretty small-minded to do that.
I also think every Catalans away game, or every Catalans game that they play in this country, let's phrase it that way, will probably end up being at Headingley because it's got a hotel on site. And whereas it's feasible for every other Rugby League player in the country to travel to every other Rugby League stadium, they're not in the country. They're the only club that aren't based in the country right now. So
exactly, their travel schedule will be completely,
yeah,
it will be completely different anyway. So
Headingley would then make sense because there's an on-site hotel.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to move into the 11th of July?
Yep, so on the 11th. So Huddersfield were the first British club to return to training. The Giants squad started preparations for the season restart on Saturday morning at the club's training centre. So safety protocols have been put in place to contain the potential spread of coronavirus and to ensure that all social distancing measures are adhered to. The Giants were also the first club to be tested, with all players and coaching staff producing negative results. Personnel have followed a COVID-19 awareness course and will undergo further testing as part of their ongoing schedule. So they'll be getting into the grind of testing weekly, I would imagine, and we'll get very used to it very quickly.
Yep. onto the 12th of July, 4020 News reported that the RFL has issued new guidance to community clubs in light of recent government announcements related to the resumption of team sports. The guidance refers to the phased return of Community Rugby League once a government-approved action plan and related guidance on playing safety are in place.